1802, the steam locomotive is invented, foreshadowing the demise of travel by stagecoach. The last spike of the 1911-mile transcontinental railroad in Promontory Point, Utah, is struck on May 10, 1869, connecting the East Coast to the West. With train travel changing the way folks got around in America, one man had the vision to see that people riding the rails would need hospitality and good food. He created a chain of restaurants, Harvey Houses, set them up along the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad line. Catering to wealthy and middle-class patrons, he became known as the civilizer of the West. Welcome to the Belén Harvey House Museum. We're glad you're here. Join us on a journey back to yesteryear and learn about the start of railroad hospitality, courtesy of entrepreneur Fred Harvey. Frederick Henry Harvey was born of Scottish and English parents in Liverpool, England in 1835. In 1853, at the age of 17, he immigrated to the U.S., where he quickly found work, curiously enough, as a pot scrubber and busboy in a popular New York restaurant. With his feet firmly planted in the restaurant business, Harvey developed a keen interest in trains and noticed the difficulty passengers had finding food during their journeys on the rails. Harvey came up with the idea to have restaurants located at train stations and pitched his idea to the Santa Fe Railroad. In 1876, Harvey cut a deal with the railroad to open a chain of Harvey House restaurants along its line. For Harvey, it was a deal of a lifetime. The railroad would build and own the building, and Harvey would operate the restaurant inside. But the construction of the Belén Harvey House was still a little ways off, and some obstacles had to be removed, namely getting a railroad line to pass through Belén. That happened in 1880 with the first train line running south from Albuquerque through Belén on to Deming and then El Paso. The one route belonging to the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad passed through the town of Belén, but as you can see from this 1891 map, Belén wasn't important enough to be listed on it. However, that would soon change. The Santa Fe had many branch lines. Most of its traffic was on this transcontinental route that ran from Chicago to California. There was a problem with this route, however, and that problem was the Raton Pass. Trains struggled to get up and over the steep grade of the Raton Pass. It was slow and costly, having to employ special pusher locomotives to assist on the climb. But thanks to a couple of wealthy Belén merchants, Belén was about to be put on the map. To avoid the Raton Pass, Santa Fe Railroad surveyors suggested running a line south of Amarillo through the Abo Canyon, following the path of a natural arroyo. The Abo Pass was 1,000 feet lower than the Raton Pass. Heading north at this point, the track could go to Jorales or Belén. The surveyors suggested the more southerly route through Jorales. However, the two wealthy Belén merchants, Felipe Chavez and John Becker, had other ideas. They saw that having the train pass through Belén would not only benefit the town, but also them personally. So they began to lobby the Santa Fe Railroad to have the train pass through Belén. It helped that Chavez was a stockholder in the Santa Fe, where his influence could sway the railroad executives to swing the train north. Becker, on the other hand, worked to secure the rights of way the railroad would need. Chavez and Becker's involvement made it easier for Santa Fe execs to say yes to the Belén route, which would be called the Belén Cutoff. Construction on the Belén Cutoff began in 1903. Dynamite was used to cut through the mountains of the Abo Pass, while teamsters with mules hauled away the thousands of tons of rock and debris. The Belén Cutoff was finished in 1908. While passenger trains still took the Raton Pass, freight trains used the Belén Cutoff, and as such ushered in a new era of growth and prosperity for Belén. The railroad coming through Belén was a boon for residents living there in 1910. 230 people, approximately 22% of the population, worked for the railroad. Freight trains coming through Belén took on coal and water for the steam locomotives, and that in turn generated more jobs. Jobs on the trains and in the rail yards, in the coal tower, roundhouse, and ice house. Plenty of jobs that were paying good cash wages. With their pockets full of cash to spend, the new workers needed food, clothes, housing, and other necessities. Many more jobs were created by the new demand. Belén grew into one of the largest railroad centers in the state of New Mexico and earned itself the name the Hub City. Sadly, Fred Harvey died in 1901, several years before the Belén cutoff was completed, and thereby bringing enough travelers to justify the building of a Belén Harvey House. But the Harvey business did live on, and it was run by Fred's two sons, Ford and Byron. They continued to build Harvey houses to meet the great demand.
The uniform must be just right, but Mr. Fred has said that uniform or no uniform, the train must be fed.
You're looking just as pretty as a Spanish omelette. But now I've got to learn you how to get the table set. First comes the plate, then the cup and sassy, the knife and fork, and here's your spoon, the nappy by the glassy. You serve them to the left, you take off to the right. Give them ginger peachy service or you'll spoil their appetite.
The Harvey House immediately gained a reputation for serving excellent food, hot and quick. So quick, in fact, that patrons could finish their meal in 30 minutes, the exact time it took for the train to refuel. A total of 84 Harvey houses were built from the Mississippi to the Pacific, and all of them enjoyed tremendous success. Part of that success is attributed to Fred Harvey's incorporation of the Harvey Girl. These were women between the ages of 18 and 30 who lived in the housing adjacent to the restaurant, or in the building itself, as was the case with the Belén Harvey House. They were chaperoned by a dorm mother and were not permitted to marry until they put in a full year of work. Judy Garland immortalized the Harvey Girls in a popular 1946 movie of the same name. With the completion of the Belén cutoff in 1908, an abundance of travelers came to Belén, bringing with them their appetites, which the soon-to-be-built Harvey House would be ready to satisfy with high-quality food served with efficiency. A well-known Chicago architect, Myron Henry Church, was tapped to design the Belén Harvey House. Church already had experience designing Santa Fe depots in the Southwest for the cities of Mountainair, Vaughan, and Clovis. Church chose to base the design of the Belén Harvey House on the California Mission Revival style, which was popular around the turn of the century. Thick adobe-style walls with a Spanish tile roof and large portals gave way to a wide, shady porch facing the tracks. Passengers could literally step off the train and be seated in the Harvey House restaurant in a matter of seconds. The Belén Harvey House was completed in 1910, 2 years before New Mexico became a state. At the time, the Belén Harvey House cost $25,800 to build, which would be over $800,000 in today's money. It was one of the largest construction projects ever in Belén's history. But the construction crew did not consist of Belén locals. Instead, all the labor and construction materials were brought in from the outside. A newsstand was situated at the first floor entrance. Passengers entering the building could find newspapers, books, tobacco, and candy. The spacious dining room with large tables could seat 64 guests for formal dining, while the nearby lunchroom featured a counter with 45 stools for more casual meals. At the time, there were no public restrooms in the Belén Harvey House. Train passengers were expected to use the restrooms on the train before getting off. If there had been restrooms at the Harvey House, the train could have easily been delayed, or passengers might have missed the departing train altogether. Public restrooms were added to the Harvey House around 1920. Behind the dining and lunchrooms were the kitchen, pantry, and storage rooms, plus a small dining area where off-duty employees ate their meals. The kitchen came with all the modern appliances of the day: coal-fired stoves, ovens, and an icebox. There were no refrigerators, no electric mixers, no deep fryers or air fryers, and you guessed it, no microwave. Yet with only the very basic of equipment, the cooks made high-quality, delicious meals, quickly and efficiently. Now, to get an idea of just how good those meals were, let's listen to an excerpt of a Harvey House review at the time by American author and humorist Irvin S. Cobb.
Out on the desert, in a dead gray expanse of silence and sagebrush, your train halts at a junction point that you never even heard of before. There's not much to be seen except that right out there in the middle of nowhere stands a hotel big enough and handsome enough for Chicago or New York. You go inside to a big, spotlessly bright dining room and get as good a meal as you can get anywhere on earth, and served in as good a style too.
That's how good the meals were. A majority of the some 16 rooms on the second floor were occupied by Harvey girls, the young women who served the meals. Each Harvey girl's sleeping room, as they were called, consisted of 2 twin beds, a dresser, and a closet. There was also a mirror and sink with running water to alleviate crowds in the communal bathrooms in the mornings and the evenings. The manager and his wife occupied a small two-room suite that consisted of a bedroom, sitting room, and private bathroom. The manager's living quarters would have had nicer furniture, either provided by the company or themselves. The manager and his wife would have typically been a more mature couple who oversaw the day-to-day operations of the restaurant. The manager was the only man allowed upstairs in the Harvey House. When it opened in December of 1910, the Harvey House was immediately the go-to restaurant in Belén, and indeed in all of Valencia County. It remained so all the way up to 1950. Upon arrival at the Harvey House, one couldn't help but notice that all the employees wore uniforms, making the Harvey House unique and special. Fred Harvey set the standards himself. Everything about the Harvey House was neat and orderly, and the manager of the Harvey House saw to it that Fred's standards were met. The Belén Harvey House was never really busy with train passengers like the Alvarado Hotel in Albuquerque was. For example, only one passenger train stopped each day for a meal in Belén. The Belén Harvey House was frequented mostly by railroad workers and local residents who occasionally wanted a special meal. For many years, the Belén Harvey House was a place where couples went to celebrate their anniversary. Young men, determined to make an impression, would get on bended knee and propose to their sweethearts after a sumptuous meal. The Belén Harvey House hosted banquets, high school proms, as well as business groups like the Rotary Club. And of course, the locals would drop in from time to time for a cold soda or perhaps some ice cream. The Harvey House was sure to impress all who frequented it. However, train travelers were still the main source of customers for most of the other Harvey Houses. But with the advent of the Great Depression of the 1930s, fewer and fewer Americans were able to afford train travel. Anyone who had money would instead use a bus or travel by car instead of a train. And ironically, Fred Harvey was his own worst enemy. By having contracted with the Santa Fe Railroad to provide meals in their dining cars, he inadvertently took customers away from his own Harvey Houses. The Great Depression shuttered more than half of the Harvey Houses, including the one in Belén. It closed its doors in 1939. As luck would have it, the railroad owned the building, so it avoided being demolished. Just a year after the Belén Harvey House was closed, the Santa Fe Railroad converted it into a reading room. Reading rooms were very important to the railroad employees. They were a place for workers to relax while waiting between trains. A reading room had already existed a few blocks away from the Harvey House, but it was closed down when the Harvey House converted to the new and much larger reading room. With World War II starting just a few short years after this, troop trains began to come through Belén on a regular basis. Local residents as well as retired Harvey girls stepped up to make and serve sandwiches to hungry soldiers on the train. Soldiers could also buy candy or gum from the reading room newsstand. Santa Fe crew members continued to use the reading room for several decades after the war ended, but eventually it was closed in 1980. And it would have faced the wrecking ball, as was the fate of so many other Harvey Houses. But the efforts of a group of civic and historic-minded Belén citizens prevented that. They persuaded the Santa Fe Railroad to deed the building to the city of Belén in 1983. At first, the building was positioned as a possible community center, but there were fears that the wear and tear in the building would ruin it. Thus, it became the Belén Harvey House Museum. The many rooms of the Belén Harvey House Museum contain exhibits relating to the history of the Harvey House, such as the Harvey girls' dorm rooms, as well as the history of the Santa Fe Railroad. The Belén Harvey House Museum is part of the Belén Public Library system, and it continues to host educational and cultural events for the entire community. More recently, as a nod to the Harvey House restaurant and the spirit of railroad hospitality of the 20s and 30s, the museum opened a luncheonette called the Whistle Stop Cafe. The cafe boasts hearty home-style comfort food, the kind your grandma served, and so delicious it would make Fred Harvey proud. Stop in after your museum visit and taste for yourself. The Belén Harvey House Museum is open Wednesday through Saturday from noon to 5 p.m., with the last entry to the museum at 4 p.m. For more information about the museum and the latest exhibits, visit our website at harveyhousemuseum.org. The Whistle Stop Cafe is open from noon to 3 p.m. Thursday through Saturday. Check out that day's menu on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Belén Harvey House. Well, that does it for exploring railroad hospitality from the early 20th century. We hope you enjoyed the film and your physical tour of the Belén Harvey House Museum. Thank you for visiting. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Bye.